The planet Xylos hummed with a regimented energy. Teal skies stretched over a landscape dominated by towering obsidian structures, barracks, training facilities, and the monolithic central thought repository. Here lived the Kryll, a species defined by unwavering discipline and a strictly hierarchical society. Imagine something like if a squid designed your taxes but also knew martial arts. The Kryll were a semi-aquatic species, their sleek gray bodies moving with surprising speed on land thanks to their multiple coordinated limbs. Their large bioluminescent eyes scanned the world with cold, calculating efficiency. Emotion was seen as a weakness, individuality a threat. Their entire civilization was built upon the principles of unwavering obedience and logical progression. Central to Kryll society was the Cerebro-Net, a planet-wide network that facilitated instant knowledge transfer and collective decision-making. Every Kryll, from the moment of hatching, was connected to this network. It ensured conformity, efficiency, and above all, prevented deviation from the established norms. Think of it as the ultimate group chat, but with mandatory participation and zero tolerance for emojis. Into this world of sterile order arrived Sarah, an exchange teacher from Earth. Her arrival was met with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Humans, as far as the Kryll were concerned, were chaotic, illogical creatures. Still, the Supreme Council agreed to the exchange program, hoping to learn from humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. Or at least, that's what they told themselves. Sarah stepped off the transport ship with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder and a slightly bewildered expression on her face. She was unexpected. Her clothes were mismatched, her hair was a vibrant, unnatural shade of purple, and she seemed perpetually amused by something. The Kryll escorting her, a high-ranking officer named Commander Zorgon, struggled to maintain his composure. "Welcome to Xylos, Exchange Liaison Sarah," Zorgon stated, his voice a deep, resonant baritone amplified by his translator. "I trust your journey was, efficient?" Sarah grinned, a flash of white teeth against her tanned skin. "Efficient? Nah, but the in-flight entertainment was surprisingly good. Ever seen a documentary about competitive cheese sculpting?" Zorgon's bioluminescent eyes flickered. "Cheese sculpting?" He filed the information away for later analysis. "We will proceed to the designated learning facility. Your curriculum has been pre-approved and integrated into the Cerebro-Net." "Curriculum, schmurriculum," Sarah muttered under her breath, adjusting the strap of her duffel bag. "I've got a few ideas of my own." The Kryll children, or Larvae, as they were officially designated until reaching maturity, were assembled in a sterile white classroom. They sat in perfect rows, their attention focused on the large Cerebro-Net interface screen. Information flowed across the screen in a constant stream of data and equations. Learning for the Kryll was a process of direct data upload. Sarah surveyed the room with a critical eye. "Okay, kids," she said, clapping her hands together. "Today we're going to talk about something completely useless and utterly amazing." Zorgon, observing from a discreet corner, felt a ripple of unease. Useless. The Kryll had no concept of uselessness. Every action, every thought, was geared towards the betterment of the collective. "Today," Sarah continued, her voice full of enthusiasm, "we're going to talk about dreams." A collective, confused silence filled the room. The Cerebro-Net sputtered, unable to process the query. Dreams? The concept was alien, illogical, and, according to Kryll philosophy, a complete waste of cognitive resources. This was going to be interesting. Sarah beamed at the blank faces of the Kryll larvae. "Dreams? You know those, movies your brain makes when you're sleeping?" The Cerebro-Net whirred, attempting to find a logical equivalent. Finally, a synthesized voice echoed through the classroom. Query. Dreams. Definition. Illogical neurological discharges resulting from inefficient cognitive processing during periods of inactivity. Purpose. None. Sarah winced. Okay, well, technically accurate, but missing the point entirely. Dreams aren't just random brain farts. They're stories, adventures, things that can't, and often shouldn't, happen in real life. One of the larvae, a particularly bright one named Click07, raised a tentacle. Clarification. Are these dreams factual representations of external reality? Sarah stifled a laugh. These kids were adorable in a disconcertingly logical sort of way. Nope, not even close. They're made up. Like if you took all the weirdest stuff you can imagine and threw it in a blender. The cerebronet sputtered again. Analogy. Inefficient. Blenders are designed for nutrient extraction, not the creation of illogical narratives. Sarah sighed. This was going to be harder than she thought. Okay, new approach. Imagine. You're a giant space slug. You're wearing a tiny hat, and you're singing opera on the moon. The classroom remained silent. Zorgon, observing from the corner, felt a twitch in his eye stalks. Space slugs? Opera? This human was clearly malfunctioning. Click07 tilted its head. Probability of space slug existing on lunar surface while performing operatic vocalizations. 0. Attire requirements for space slugs. Illogical. Sarah rubbed her temples. That's the point, Click07. It's not supposed to be logical. It's a dream. It's imagination. You make it up. It's like telling yourself a story, but you're also the director, the special effects team, and the popcorn vendor. The cerebronet chimed in, helpfully or not. Popcorn, a terrestrial snack food. Nutritional value, minimal. Correlation to dream state, non-existent. Sarah decided to change tactics again. Okay. Forget space slugs. Let's try something simpler. Close your eyes. Everyone. And imagine. A color. Any color. One you've never seen before. The larvae, ever obedient, closed their eyes. Sarah waited, watching their still forms. The cerebronet, sensing a lull in activity, began to display optimization algorithms on the interface screen. After a moment, Sarah spoke softly. Okay. What color did you see? Click07 opened its eyes. Analysis, color spectrum fully documented, no new colors possible. Another larvae, Click03, spoke up, its voice barely a whisper. I saw a color. It was like blue, but warm. Zorgon straightened up. Warm blue? Anomaly detected. Sarah grinned. That's it. That's what I'm talking about. You just invented a new color. Even if it doesn't exist. You dreamed it. Click03 looked confused, but also intrigued. A flicker of something, curiosity, sparked in its bioluminescent eyes. But the cerebronet says? The cerebronet doesn't know everything, Sarah said, winking. Especially not about dreams. She pulled a small, colorful object from her duffel bag. Now, who wants to hear a story about a purple dinosaur who becomes a detective? Zorgon gripped the edge of the doorway. Purple dinosaurs? Detectives? This human was corrupting the larvae with illogical nonsense. He had to put a stop to this. Immediately. But a tiny part of him, a part he hadn't known existed, was curious. What was a purple dinosaur detective anyway? The Kryll learning device was a sleek, chrome orb, humming softly in the center of the classroom. It was connected to each larva via neural interfaces, pumping information directly into their developing brains. Sarah had initially been impressed by its efficiency, until she realized what kind of information it was pumping. It wasn't teaching them advanced calculus or intergalactic diplomacy. It was force-feeding them Kryll history, Kryll regulations, Kryll societal expectations. It was, in essence, a tool for manufacturing conformity. Sarah watched the larvae, their tiny bodies motionless, their minds being filled with pre-approved data streams. The orb pulsed with a sterile blue light, a symbol of the Kryll's unwavering commitment to order and control. A shiver ran down her spine. This wasn't education, it was indoctrination. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. The image of the larvae, plugged into the chrome orb, haunted her. She knew she couldn't stand by and watch their imaginations be systematically erased. She had to do something. The next day, during her teaching session, Sarah approached the orb with a casual air. "So," she said, her voice deceptively light, "this is quite the learning facilitator you've got here." Zorgon, who was, as always, observing from the corner, narrowed his eye stalks. "It is a cerebro-indoctrination unit," Zorgon stated flatly. "It ensures optimal cognitive development in accordance with societal parameters." Sarah smiled sweetly. Right. Optimal cognitive development, of course, just wondering if it has like a volume control?" She gestured towards the orb, her fingers twitching. "Sometimes things get a little loud in here, with all the learning." Zorgon hesitated. The cerebro-indoctrination unit was not supposed to be adjusted by unauthorized personnel. However, the human had a point. The auditory output levels were slightly above the recommended decibel range for optimal larval concentration. Adjustment. "Protocols require authorization," he said, his voice tight. "Oh, I wouldn't dream of actually adjusting anything," Sarah said innocently. "Just admiring the craftsmanship. You Kryll are so good at making things complicated." She fiddled with a small panel on the side of the orb, her fingers moving, with practiced ease. It was amazing what you could learn from watching a few YouTube videos about alien technology. "Human," Zorgon said, his voice rising in alarm. "What are you doing?" Sarah looked up, her eyes wide. "Me? Nothing. Just, cleaning. Yes, cleaning. You wouldn't want any dust bunnies interfering with optimal cognitive development, would you?" She winked, then turned back to the orb, continuing her subtle manipulations. What Zorgon didn't know was that Sarah wasn't cleaning anything. She was rerouting the data streams, subtly injecting her own lesson plans into the mix. Instead of Kryll history, the larvae were now getting doses of classic literature, abstract art, and, Sarah's personal favorite, ridiculously catchy pop songs. As the days passed, the effects of Sarah's meddling became increasingly apparent. The larvae started asking questions, illogical, imaginative questions that sent Zorgon into fits of bureaucratic consternation. They began doodling strange symbols on their slates, symbols that resembled, well, nothing in the known Kryll language. One day, Click07 even started humming a tune, a ridiculously catchy Earth pop song about a teenage girl and a zombie. Zorgon nearly had a nervous breakdown. This human was a menace. But also, maybe, just maybe, something interesting was about to happen. The first sign was the laughter. It started subtly, a faint gurgling sound emanating from the larval learning chamber. But it grew, day by day, into a chorus of giggles that echoed through the sterile halls of the Kryll Institute for Advanced Indoctrination. Laughter was not a permitted emotion in Kryll society, particularly not during designated learning periods. Zorgon observed the larvae through the reinforced observation window. They were supposed to be absorbing the intricacies of Kryll battle strategies, not wriggling with mirth. The human Sarah was standing before them, a datapad in her hand and a mischievous glint in her eyes. Something was clearly amiss. "Human Sarah," Zorgon's voice boomed through the classroom speakers. "Explain the unauthorized vocalizations emanating from the larvae." Sarah blinked, feigning innocence. "Vocalizations? Oh, you mean the happy noises? They're just expressing their enthusiasm for the lesson." Enthusiasm is a level 3 emotional response, strictly prohibited during strategic assimilation protocols, Zorgon countered, his eye stalks twitching. Furthermore, the larvae have begun exhibiting other, anomalous behaviors. Unexplained curiosity, illogical questioning, and an unsettling fascination with brightly colored objects. Sarah shrugged. "Kids will be kids, Zorgon. Besides, a little curiosity never hurt anyone. It's how they learn, Ask questions, explore, imagine things." "Imagination is a dangerous and inefficient cognitive function," Zorgon interrupted, his voice rising. "It leads to speculation, doubt, and ultimately, societal instability. The Kryll have no need for imagination. We have logic, order, and unwavering adherence to protocol." He paused, then added, "And yet these larvae now draw Pictures of grotesque, four-legged creatures with fur. The interrogation took place in Zorgan's austere office. Metal walls, a single bioluminescent lamp, and a desk constructed entirely of polished obsidian. The perfect setting for a serious reprimand. Sarah sat casually in the designated visitor containment unit, a chair that subtly emitted a low-frequency hum designed to induce compliance. It didn't seem to be working. "Human, Sarah," Zorgan began, his voice a low rumble. "We have reviewed the data logs from the Indoctrination unit. There appear to be discrepancies in the approved curriculum." Sarah leaned back in the humming chair, unfazed. "Discrepancies? Like what? Did I accidentally teach them the wrong Kryll battle formations? Because honestly, they all look the same to me. You have introduced foreign concepts," Zorgan stated, his eye stalks narrowing. "Concepts such as jokes, stories, and, most disturbingly, the concept of sleeping and dreaming." Sarah stifled a yawn. "Well, yeah. Sleep is important, Zorgan. You should try. Sometime you look like you could use a good 8 hours." Zorgan ignored her. "These concepts are disruptive. They introduce uncertainty and whimsy into the larvae's cognitive processes. Explain yourself, human." Sarah sighed dramatically. "Okay, fine. Look, I get it. You Kryll are all about order and control. But these kids are just larvae. They need a little fun, a little imagination, a little dreaming." "Dreaming is a biological malfunction," Zorgan insisted. "A random firing of neural synapses resulting in illogical and often disturbing hallucinations. Or," Sarah countered with a sly grin, "it's your brain's way of sorting through the day, making sense of things and coming up with new ideas. You know, like how to defeat the Glargan Empire without resorting to, I don't know, vaporizing their entire planet." Zorgan stared at her, his multifaceted eyes unblinking. "Are you suggesting that the Kryll strategic doctrine is flawed?" "I'm just saying," Sarah replied with a shrug. "Maybe a little dreaming wouldn't hurt. Maybe it would help you think outside the box. Or in your case, the perfectly symmetrical obsidian-lined box." She paused. "And maybe, just maybe, it would help you understand why those larvae keep drawing pictures of fluffy, four-legged creatures." Zorgan leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The Indoctrination unit," he hissed, "is a sacred instrument. It is designed to instill unwavering loyalty and intellectual uniformity. You have tampered with it." Sarah finally sat up straight, a serious expression replacing her usual smirk. "Tampered? No, Zorgan. I merely recontextualized it." She paused, letting the word hang in the air like a poorly aimed plasma bolt. "You see, you've been using it all wrong." Zorgan's many eyes darted around, processing this information. "Wrong? It has been used for millennia to create the most disciplined, logical, and utterly predictable society in this galaxy. How could it possibly be wrong?" Sarah reached into her seemingly bottomless bag and pulled out a small, brightly colored object. It was vaguely cylindrical, with a series of buttons and a small screen displaying a swirling vortex of colors. She held it up for Zorgan to see. "This," she announced, "is a dream indoctrination device." Zorgan stared at the object, his confusion palpable. That is a child's toy, human Sarah. A frivolous distraction. We confiscated dozens of them from your quarters." "Exactly," Sarah exclaimed, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. "You confiscated them. You saw them as a threat to your precious order, but you didn't understand what they really were, or more importantly, what they could be." She tapped a button on the device, and a soothing melody filled the room. A simple, almost hypnotic tune. "This," she explained, "is what you call a white noise machine. Humans use it to help children fall asleep. It blocks out distractions and creates a calming atmosphere." Zorgan remained skeptical. "And you claim this white noise machine is responsible for the larvae's inappropriate behavior?" "Not just the white noise," Sarah clarified. "It's the combination of the sound, the colors, and the Suggestion. You see, when you play this for the larvae during their learning sessions, it doesn't just block out distractions. It opens their minds. It allows them to relax, to imagine, to dream. But the Cerebro-Indoctrination unit amplifies its effects, Zorgan interjected, starting to grasp the implications. It enhances the suggestibility of the larvae. Sarah nodded. Precisely. You thought you were using it to instill unwavering loyalty. But all you were really doing was giving them the space to think for themselves. You turned a harmless toy into a tool for liberation. She paused for dramatic effect. And that, Zorgan, is the most subversive thing a human can do. Zorgan was silent for a long moment, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the swirling colors of the white noise machine. The implications of Sarah's revelation were staggering. He had mistaken a simple human toy for a tool of indoctrination, and, in doing so, he had inadvertently unlocked the very thing the Kryll had sought to suppress for generations: imagination. The Kryll larvae, now buzzing with newfound creativity, began to express themselves in ways that sent shockwaves through the sterile halls of the training facilities. Instead of reciting the mandatory loyalty oaths in monotone, they started adding flourishes, improvising gestures, and even horrors, injecting humor. One youngling, during a weapons drill, fashioned his plasma rifle into a bizarre sculpture, resembling a Grobnar beetle, a creature known for its vibrant colors and utter lack of military prowess. Another started composing poems about the shimmering methane clouds of Kryll Prime, much to the dismay of his drill sergeant, who considered such artistic pursuits a gross waste of valuable training time. But the most alarming development was the laughter. The Kryll had never laughed. It was considered an inefficient use of energy, a frivolous display of emotion that served no strategic purpose. Now, the training facilities echoed with the sound of giggling larvae, their multifaceted, eyes sparkling with mischief. The authorities, led by the increasingly flustered Zorgan, attempted to quell the uprising of imagination. They implemented stricter disciplinary measures, increased the dosage of loyalty-enhancing serums, and even considered dismantling the Cerebro-Indoctrination units altogether. But it was too late. The seed of creativity had been planted, and it was sprouting like a weed in a meticulously manicured garden. One day, during the daily planetary address by the Supreme Commander, a young larva named Gleep decided to add his own commentary. As the commander droned on about the importance of unwavering obedience and the glorious destiny of the Kryll, Gleep piped up, "But Supreme Commander, isn't it boring to always agree with everything?" The silence that followed was deafening. The Supreme Commander, a towering figure of authority, paused mid-sentence, his many eyes twitching in disbelief. Such a blatant display of insubordination was unheard of. Before he could issue a reprimand, however, another larva chimed in. "Yeah, what if we tried something new? Like dancing?" And then it happened. A wave of larvae began to sway and wiggle, their normally rigid bodies moving in a chaotic, uncoordinated, but undeniably joyous dance. The Supreme Commander, utterly bewildered, could only stammer, What is the meaning of this unacceptable behavior?" Zorgan, watching the scene unfold on the surveillance monitors, felt a wave of despair wash over him. He had dedicated his life to upholding the rigid order of Kryll society, and now, thanks to a seemingly harmless human toy, it was all crumbling before his very eyes. He could almost hear Sarah's sarcastic laughter echoing in his mind. The Kryll children, liberated by dreams and imagination, were no longer predictable, no longer compliant, and no longer willing to blindly follow the dictates of their elders. They were a new generation, full of curiosity, humor, and a burning desire to explore the infinite possibilities of their own minds. And the future of the Kryll, once so meticulously planned and controlled, was now gloriously, terrifyingly uncertain. The effects of Sarah's intervention rippled through Kryll society long after her departure. The initial chaos subsided, but the underlying shift in consciousness remained. The Kryll larvae, now adults, carried with them the memory of dreams, the spark of imagination, and a nagging sense that there was more to life than unwavering obedience. Some used their newfound creativity to improve existing technologies, devising more efficient energy sources and innovative defense systems. Others turned to art and philosophy, exploring the nature of existence and the meaning of their place in the universe. A few even dared to question the authority of the Supreme Commander, leading to heated debates and occasional skirmishes within the ranks of the Kryll military. Zorgon, now an elder statesman, watched these developments with a mixture of apprehension and grudging respect. He knew that the old order was gone forever, replaced by something unpredictable and potentially dangerous. But he also saw a glimmer of hope in the eyes of the younger generation, a potential for growth and evolution that the Kryll had never possessed before. The Dream Indoctrination device, now rebranded as the Imagination Amplifier, became a standard tool in Kryll education. But it was used with caution, its power carefully monitored to prevent another outbreak of creativity. The Kryll had learned a valuable lesson, that even the most rigid society needs a little bit of chaos to thrive. And, Sarah,